demons during their exorcisms?
Your question earlier, let's before we get to that, the question is, why do demons possess people? Why? We believe that, of course, demons hate God. That's one thing that's very clear. Demons hate God, hate Jesus, hate anything holy, and are just going to spend their eternity screaming at God, blaming God, and trying to lash out at God. Now, they can't lash out at God. They can't do anything to God. So they lash out at his creatures as a way of trying to get back to him. Also, they're full of rage and violence. They are evil. They're shot through with evil. They desire to kill, destroy, maim, and to pervert. So that's just who they are. And they're going to spend their eternity in hell, being raging and violent. Also, interesting, I was in an exorcism some time ago, and I don't know why I said this. I looked at it, I said, in Jesus' name, tell me, why won't you leave? And the demons go, I like it here. I like it here. Well, that's probably better than hell. I mean, I like it here. I said, well, too bad.
So is each demon that you interact with, are these different demons, or are you experiencing the same one often?
Well, typically there are the major lieutenants in hell. The biblical names, Baal, for example, Beelzebul, Leviathan, Jezebel, a lot of the famous names you encounter again and again. But then, of course, there are billions and billions of demons in hell, and so the low ones are coming and going, But the big names tend to reappear,
I have to ask, though, because I'm reminded of the quote from Psalms that I walk, Gamki Elach Gates Amavis, Lo Ira Rakiate Madi, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of the death, I fear no evil because you are with me. Again, my frame of reference, unfortunately, is influenced significantly by Hollywood. When I think of the films, Insidious, Poltergeist, it's very scary. I mean, this is fascinating to hear it from you, but I'm imagining, this dark, eerie room where a child or an individual is going through real suffering. How do you, as someone who's performed so many exorcisms, do you not get scared? Do you not feel a demonic presence? Do you not feel this overwhelming sense of evil in a room? I mean, I get scared watching the movie Chucky about a possessed doll, and you're actually experiencing possessed people.
If you're sensitive at all, if you develop some spiritual sensitivities, it's ugly. There's no question about it is ugly. And the more sensitive you are, the more you feel that dark, evil thing. I think probably all of you have done that. I would say with people listening, if you've been to a place that's full of evil, you walk into that place and you go, and you kind of feel the darkness and evil involved. So yeah. But here's the thing. People say, "Are you get frightened?" Well, I'll get a little bit nervous when things go bump in the middle of the night, But no, not an exorcism, because here's the thing. Well, for example, we had one case where Lucifer himself was present, and that's not normal. But people say he usually is not physically present himself. In this case, he was, and we finally got down to him. He was at the end, and put some water around him, held up a crucifix. He started screaming, and one of the other priests was impressed. He said, "I can't believe that Lucifer himself would be tormented by the things of the Lord." And that gives you the great confidence. You realize that Jesus is Lord, not Satan. Jesus is the God-man. He is Lord and Savior. He has crushed Satan's kingdom. Satan's dust compared to Jesus. As long as I'm protected by Jesus, as long as I'm inside his umbrella, I'm fine. I'm fine. Now, if I start going outside doing bad things, well, you're in trouble. But Satan's dust compared to Jesus. He's howling. He's screaming. He can't take it. Oh, look at the Holy One. He starts screaming. Why should I be afraid of him? He's nothing.
I just want to understand, because it seems like you're stating something quite profound. So you have seen Lucifer?
I'm so sick of seeing these withheld pot ads. So I ordered one to see if it actually works while it's up to 50% off.
Lucifer?
People will say that I have Lucifer present. No, not. He's always manipulating he's a control freak. He's manipulating everything behind the scenes. But usually not physically leading the charge. In this particular case, he was physically leading the charge. It was a huge case. And it was very neat, and I'll never see that again. It only happened once. And yeah, I know he was. As a matter of fact, halfway through the exorcism, I came where Beelzebub was the out front demon leader. It was a high-ranking demon, by the way. And Jesus never commanded to tell him who's a capo, who's the head of this thing. I need to know that because when you get rid of the chief, then they all go. He said, "You're not ready for this, Rosetti. It's the Prince of Hell, the King of Hell himself. You're way out of your league. It's Lucifer or Satan, what I call it. You're way out of your league." So I said, I caught myself and said, "Yeah, that's true. He's way out of my league, but." Normally I don't get the names. In most cases I do not get a name, but there are a number that we do. I'll say in Jesus' name I commanded, Dikos mihi nomen tuum. It's in the old rite of exorcism which we use from time to time. Dikos mihi nomen tuum. Tell me your name. Diem et ora. Actually just truly, the day and the hour you're going to leave. Quid stas et resistis. Why do you stand and resist? So tell me your name. And when you know the name of the demon, it gives you a little more power over them. So then I'll use it. I'll say, in Jesus' name, I command Beelzebub to leave. And when he hears his own name, he kind of cringes. You know, see, it's beating him up.
Have you ever seen directly or know other exorcists who've seen the devil manifest in a physical presence on earth?
No, you know, there's a vision of a demon. Let me say this about that. People realize how ugly evil is. Your worst depiction on Hollywood doesn't come close. doing violence to the Bible. It's a very clear Jesus did exorcism. It was part of his ministry, and it was part of him ushering in the kingdom of God. It was not ancillary. It was just not. Wasn't an ancillary ministry. Casting out demons and smashing Satan's kingdom was, especially in the Gospel of Mark, was an integral part of ushering in the kingdom of God in Jesus' day and in ours.
You've given a lot of different examples and stories. Is there one particular incident, open miracle, exorcism that you performed that really animated your belief in Jesus that you would want to share with our audience?
Well, I would say the first thing I want everybody to know, and the one thing that Hollywood does not understand, and why you can't believe I'm not terrified and frightened and all that kind of stuff. Jesus is Lord, Satan's dust. Hollywood can't understand that, you know. Demons are powerful, but compared to Jesus, they're nothing. I behind Jesus, you're going to be fine. So don't be too worried about demons. You know, just trust in Jesus. He's got you there. You know, you'll be fine. So don't lose any sleep over this whole thing. But yeah, I've had a few cases. I've had a couple. Two which are really eye-watering cases, which were a blessing. Well, I've talked about the one that Lucifer was present, and that really kind of, if you had any doubt of what the whole thing was about, boy, that case would have brought it all home. And it really was instructive. In many ways, the cases I've had have instructed me as much as the background training of what happens and if this is real. I would say that the grace of this ministry is, one, is helping people to be free, which is just a joy. And also, you experience the truths of the faith. Now, remember, Shabash, you're talking to a Catholic priest. Everything that the Catholic Church teaches these days in the Catechism, I find affirmed in an exorcism. Power of Christ, power of the Church, power of the priesthood, saints, angels, relics, sacramentals, sacraments, all those things. You see them acted out and experienced. And actually, so it confirms your faith. It really has confirmed my faith. I've seen Jesus cast out some pretty ugly demons, and I've seen people liberated from some very ugly stuff. And you've seen things happen, things fly across the room, and people, knowing foreign languages and all sorts of things they shouldn't know. So you see these things you simply can't explain naturally. You can't explain when you look at the preternatural and the spiritual reality of the church. So it's been a blessing for me, a grace of 19 years. I was hoping to retire one of these days.
Well, if you retire, who's going to be performing all the exorcisms? You said you're understaffed anyway.
Yes, we need more priests, but we've got a bunch of, the seminaries are not empty. And we actually were getting the vocations. We just ordained a bunch of people in the Archdiocese of Washington the last 2 years. So, and these younger guys have kind of got it. My generation, a lot of the guys didn't believe in demons, didn't think it was safe, and all of a sudden thought it was nuts and all that. But the younger guys, they get it. And I have no doubt that there'll be some very stalwart young guys coming up. The Lord provides. And we've got some good young priests coming up.
So just before I let you go, can you give our viewers, especially our Catholic viewers, any practical prayers or any practical verses from Scripture that they can say to protect them from these demonic forces and from this temptation of leading astray?
Well, on our website and app, we have oodles of great prayers from the church. We recommend people go www.catholicexorcism.org, catholicexorcism.org, or an app, Catholic space exorcism, and we have lots and lots of prayers there, and lots of videos and all sorts of videos. So there's lots of online resources we have in our YouTube channel as well as in our app and website.
Monsignor, this has really just been a fascinating conversation. I thank you not just for making the time on this show, but everything you've been doing to provide a more spiritually fulfilling life for people all over the world. So thank you again.
A pleasure. Thanks be to God, and God bless you.
Order food you love with Food Panda. Download the app and order now.
Panda?
Welcome to this Firebrand brief. So I'm going to jump right into the point. We're talking today about Monsignor Stephen Rosetti being removed as chief exorcist in the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. We're going to talk about my analysis and my reaction. It's just very strange. I'm going to tell you what I really think. I'm going to tell you what Catholics should take away from it, and I'm going to tell you why this is important. It's important because Catholics are much more attentive to exorcists than we ever were in the history of the Church. We need to be careful what we're taking from this because Catholics, I think, as a whole, are going to be very hyper-reactive, and you really, really shouldn't be, okay? Monsignor Rosetti was removed. Basically, this is what happened. He did a video on social media talking about UFOs, and he said very clearly it was his opinion. It is not de fide, it doesn't come from the Church, it is his opinion that most, if not all, UFO sightings are the demonic. Everyone hearing that is probably shrugging their shoulders. Okay, we've heard that possibility before. You might be right, or you might be wrong, but it's not crazy, right? Most of you are shrugging your shoulders. This is why I'm so confused by his removal. He was removed not strictly for that, okay? According to the Archdiocese, he was removed because of those comments. And specifically, the Archdiocese said they undermine the very precise, teaching or theology, the Church's very precise teaching or theology on angels and demons. It's a non-reason. Where was he being imprecise? Everyone who knows the theology behind his statements are asking that same question. But it goes a little bit deeper. Most people are going to stop on that excuse, that reason. Okay, it undermines church theology or something, whatever the wording was. But it also said, and also its recent use of social media. That's an important component. I'm going to tell you right at the top, I don't buy this reason that I'm going to try to explain to you what I think the Archdiocese is saying. But I don't personally buy it. Now, what I think the Archdiocese is saying is this. Monsignor Rosetti is a very prominent figure on social media. He's a very prominent Catholic priest. What's more, he's a prominent exorcist. Now, here comes Monsignor Rosetti, who's not just talking about angelology or angelics, I think is the proper term, but that's just me. He's not just talking about angelology and demonology and exorcism and warning people to stay away from the occult, warning people to stay away from witchcraft, and so on. I know these are terrible things for Monsignor Rosetti to be doing. Terrible, terrible. You know, neo-paganism is on the rise. Occultism is on the rise. People think it's harmless, so it's not like they're trying to do a dance with the devil in the pale moonlight. But that's what they're doing when they do things like a Ouija board or tarot cards and so on. And this is in line with the teaching of the church, okay, or with church thought on the matter. This stuff is on the rise. I can tell you very personally, this stuff is absolutely on the rise, especially neo-paganism is on the rise. In an era where this stuff is on the rise, I realize it's a terrible thing that you've got a priest out there who very gently and intelligently is articulating these things and issuing these warnings, and not just warning them, but educating people, informing people about why these things are dangerous. I realize that's a very bad thing. But let's set that aside for a second. Now you have Monsignor Rosetti. He's a very prominent exorcist and priest on social media. And again, I'm trying to represent, this is my responsibility, I'm trying to represent fairly the position of the church. Prominent priest and exorcist. That's not a non-issue, that he's not just a priest, he's an exorcist. As an exorcist, he's representing something that the church doesn't back away from, but prefers that sort of thing to stay in the back, not up front. Why? Because the church doesn't evangelize the demonic. The church evangelizes the gospel. The church doesn't advance and protect and defend and champion demonology or even angelology. It protects and champions and proclaims the gospel of Jesus Christ. So it's appropriate that things like demonology, exorcism, the church doesn't back away from it, but it doesn't put it at the front of the store. It puts it way in the back of the store, maybe even in the basement, but it doesn't lie that it's there. Let's think of it that way. So now you have Monsignor Rosetti. He is a Catholic priest, and he is an exorcist. Oh, getting hotter, getting hotter. And now he's a very prominent figure on social media. Okay. I think all of that is fine because Monsignor Rosetti, you can't get less controversial than Monsignor Stephen Rosetti. You really can't get less controversial than that. Very sweet person. Very intelligent, very bright. He is both theological and scientific in his approach. I mean, he's just so, what I always say is he's just so normal. But now, Monsignor Rosetti has touched on a topic that is a bit of a hot potato in the secular world. The question of life on other planets and whether or not we are being visited by aliens from outer space. UFO sightings. This is very big in the secular world right now. It's very big in the secular news cycle. There was just recently that disclosure of documents and stuff. I'm completely underwhelmed by it from the government, right, from the American government. So this is really present in the secular mind. Monsignor Rosetti was simply reacting to it. He was not attempting to contribute to it. Now, let's put these pieces together. A Catholic priest who is an exorcist, for many people that makes him super priest. That makes him super Catholic priest. For many people that makes him Mr. Catholic Church. Maybe not you, maybe not for ordinary Catholics, ordinary practicing Catholics, but for everybody else, which is like 97% of his audience. Well, maybe not 97, but for everybody else, he's Mr. Catholic Church. Now, apart from his prominence, his super hot platform, now he's got hooked on something that has brought him now to the stratosphere of I guess, prominence and attention, talking about UFOs. Now, picture this. You have no knowledge at all of church thought on the subject of angelology or demonology. You have no knowledge of it at all. And you just heard Mr. Catholic priest saying UFOs, in my opinion, most of them, if not all or all of them, are the demonic. What does that sound like? It sounds like either he's crazy, right? Because of course you can't fit St. Thomas Aquinas theology inside of a social media reel. Either he sounds like he's crazy, or he sounds like he's saying we're being invaded by demons, not aliens, which is a lot scarier, creepier, a lot worse, a lot nuttier, right? And who just said that? Mr. Catholic Church. Not an individual priest named Stephen Rosetti, who opened his comments by saying, this does not come from the church. This is my opinion. Most UFOs are demons, or are of the demonic, I think he said. They're not necessarily themselves demons. The reason why I think that is what got him clipped is because the Archdiocese mentioned two things in its statement. One was, and I'm paraphrasing very loosely here, one, that he was reckless in his comments, and two, his prominence on social media, or what the Archdiocese said was the organization's use of social media lately. I mean, what are they doing with their social media? So it must be because he's very, popular on social media. He has a very large platform. The Archdiocese said both of those things. You put those two things together, knowing the church as I do, I think that is what got him clipped, maybe. I do get into one or two other possible reasons from the church's perspective, possible reasons for why he might have been removed. I want to be clear, he has not been removed as a priest. He's only been removed as an exorcist. He no longer has faculties to do exorcisms. I want to be clear about that, okay? In the article, which I forgot to put in the description, but after I take this live stream off the air, I will put the article in this description. It's over at the Forge. I go through one or two other reasons why I think he probably got removed. My personal reaction is this. Nothing in the church is simple. Things that people often see up front often look simple, but they're just playing make-believe. Nothing in the church is simple. Just the nature of the beast, okay? For instance, what Monsignor Rosetti said about UFOs and aliens is simple. But the church mind on such matters is not simple, okay? There's a lot of theology behind that. There's a lot of history behind that theology. There's a lot of substance and material to that theology. You obviously can't put that in a little reel on Instagram, so you have to simplify it, right? This here too, the announcement from the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. Was very thin, to say the least. It could be that there's a lot more going on than that, and you couldn't possibly fit it on a page or two of paper. That could very well be. It could be the reason he was removed is exactly what I just articulated to you. And do you see how nuanced and complex that is? Maybe that's why it was only 2 small paragraphs. Still, I don't buy it. Again, knowing the church as I do, what often happens is sometimes there's friction between a priest and his bishop, or a priest's organization, or a priest's office and the bishop, or someone else high-ranking in the diocese. And a lot of times, believe it or not, it's not even the bishop. The bishop just signs his name to a document. Sometimes it isn't always the bishop. A lot of times it's not always the bishop. Sometimes it could be the vicar general, right? Or somebody else who's high-ranking in the diocese. And there's friction for whatever reason. I'm not saying it's like bad politics or anything like that. This is just what happens in an organization. It's a little bit dirty politics in some organizations more than it is in other organizations, but all things being equal, then sometimes what will happen is that priest has to go, Or, I mean, folks, we saw this happen with, what was his name? He's the priest who does a lot of pro-life stuff. I can't remember his name now. Frank Pavone. I think they were looking to axe Father Frank Pavone for a long time, probably for valid reasons, and they just needed a good enough reason to pull the trigger. Well, that might have been something that happened here with Father Stephen Rosetti. Maybe there was friction, and I'm not saying he's innocent of any friction. I'm not saying he's guilty of any friction, and I'm not saying there is definitely friction at all. I have no idea. I'm speculating, okay? Because I just know that these sorts of things do happen in the church. There might have been some friction, some back and forth, some disagreement, some lack of cooperation, some lack of obedience. I'm not making any suggestions. I'm just saying hypothetically. And there might have been some kind of conflict, soft or aggressive, going on for a while. And they were just waiting and waiting and waiting for a reason to clip him. And yesterday was that reason, or whenever, it might have been a few days ago that he released that video. And that was the reason they were looking for. And maybe because it was such a stupid reason, in my opinion, it's a stupid reason. Maybe because it was, even if the real reason is exactly what I said, because he's a prominent guy and he seems like Mr. Catholic Church and now he's saying this, I still think that's a very stupid reason to take him out. That being said, it could be that that very stupid reason was a desperate trigger that they were waiting for to remove a priest from, not from his priestly ministry, but from that office, from the responsibility of chief exorcist, to downgrade him a little bit. Maybe they were looking to do that for a while, and they were waiting for the right trigger, and maybe they were waiting for months and months, or maybe they were waiting for a year or more. And because Monsignor Rosetti is such a straight shooter, and he's so non-controversial, it took a long time for them to find a trigger. They lost their patience. They finally found some incredibly stupid reason to take him out, and they finally did. That could be, my suspicion is that's probably what happened. My suspicion, my opinion, that is probably what happened. Now, if that is what happened, I am not saying the diocese was wrong. And I am not saying Monsignor Rosetti had it coming. We don't know, even if we don't know if that is what happened. We really don't know. As far as I'm concerned, it's as likely to be the case as not. So we don't know. Speculating, okay? And if that is what happened, that doesn't mean the diocese was justified and Monsignor Rosetti was wrong. It also doesn't mean Monsignor Rosetti did something wrong or was the victim. It could go either way. My friends, can I drop some more knowledge on you? I have personally known absolute cobras in the priesthood. Cobras who should never, ever have been ordained in several dioceses, who flew beneath the radar, finally got figured out. I'm not talking about abuse or anything like that. It's nothing like that. But otherwise, priests who should not have been priests. And finally, the bishop or someone high-ranking figures them out, and it's like, this guy is trouble. Takes it to the bishop, let's say. And now they're waiting for a canonically valid reason to take him out of ministry. And they wait, and they wait, and they wait. And sometimes they finally get their reason. And sometimes they have to stretch and make one up. Not make one up like it's a lie, but something like this, where it's like, it's a reason, but it's kind of a thin reason to degrade or downgrade a priest. Sometimes that happens. I've known priests who should never have been priests. Vipers with cobras. I'm sorry, vipers with collars. Vipers with collars, or cobras with collars. And they fly beneath the radar. Finally, they get figured out. And here's why I'm sharing this. I've known of a couple of cases where that has happened, where finally nobody realizes it, but the ordinary of a diocese practically rescued his diocese by taking these priests out of commission. Not out of commission, that sounds terrible, but out of ministry. But because the faithful in these local dioceses so highly regarded these priests, because the faithful didn't know who they really were, the faithful were mad pissed off that these priests got clipped. But let me tell you, the ones that I have in mind, I'm thinking of 4 specifically in 3 different dioceses. The ones I have in mind absolutely needed to get clipped. Ask anyone in the diocese who knew them just on a pastoral level, like a parish, a person at the parish, or maybe somebody who works at various parish councils or whatever, where they're not just in the pews, they have a little bit of interface at the parish level, maybe even just a tiny bit of interface at the diocesan level. These folks thought these people were the next Jesus Christ. And boy, oh boy, did they raise a storm when these priests got taken out. But let me tell you, Lord have mercy, did those priests need to go. But the folks just didn't know it, because they don't know what goes on behind the curtain. I am not saying that's probably what happened here. Monsignor Rosetti is a dirtbag. I am not saying that. I'm only saying it is as much a possibility as not. So we don't have all the details. Keep that in mind. Here are the things you should focus on, though. Monsignor Rosetti was total class and total appropriate Catholic attitude and mindset by humbly accepting the Archbishop's or the Cardinal's judgment and encouraging people, don't let this take you away from the church and this and that, and he's, practicing total obedience to what his bishop wants. That's an attitude that we should have. That's an attitude that we should absolutely have. Even I'm trying to do that. Listen, I am not a super fan of Monsignor Rosetti. I think that I do follow him on Instagram, or it could just be that I watch some of his videos so the algorithm keeps sending them to me. Well, listen, if the algorithm sends me 10 of his videos, I might watch 1 or 2 and swipe past the others, which I know is what a lot of you do to my stuff. Don't think I don't know. Just a little joke there. But that's just normal on the internet. I'm really not making a point. It's normal on the internet. That's okay. But send me 10 of his videos. I might watch 1 or 2 out of the 10. Maybe just 1 out of 10, So I'm not a super fan, but I like him. Okay? But this is the church's judgment. There could be things going on behind the curtain that we're just not being told about. There were things going on behind the curtain that put a pause on Fulton Sheen's cause for canonization. Remember that? There were things that we weren't told about. Oh my goodness. Do you remember? There was one crazy person with a podcast, and he was the only person anywhere who was saying something like this. I don't know, folks, but my suspicion is this. Does this sound familiar? Stop me if this starts to sound familiar. Probably Fulton Sheen got mixed up in some kind of abuse drama. I don't think he was an abuser, but it could be that maybe he moved a priest unknowingly or something. Some kind of drama that he got tied up in that he's totally... Welcome to Firebrand, ladies and gentlemen. I am TJ Haynes, the Catholic Firebrand, and the undisputed technician of the truth. I thank you very much for joining me today as I adjust that level. Everyone catching this live is like, you were preparing all this time. Your audio level is still off, because I can't really check it until I start the show. Thanks for joining me, folks. Today I'm going to talk to you about an interesting phenomenon that pairs with something that I have been observing and thinking about lately. The phenomenon, Gen Z returning to church. You've been hearing bits and pieces of that, but I have some additional thoughts about that, some more recent research that's been done on that, and I'm going to give you my thoughts about it. And it's not just Gen Z, and they're not just returning back to Catholicism. It's about a religion thing, and it comes to bear on this thought: why are the young folks looking for Catholic traditionalism? Did you ever stop to think about that? Traditionalists will tell you they're flocking to the trad Mass, the traditional Latin Mass, because it's better. Is that really what it is? But I want to be clear right at the top. This is not going to be critical of traditionalism or the traditional Latin Mass. If anything, it's going to come off as being supportive of traditionalism and the traditional Latin Mass. But really, it's not. I mean, it's not for or against. It's an observation, okay? It's some observations that I want to share with you. What are we lacking today? What's missing that people in general are searching for and flocking to? That's what we're going to be talking. Not just Catholicism. I mean, it is. I'm specifically talking about Catholicism, but it's not just traditionalism. What's lacking in the modern church culture, and why are people finding it? Not just in traditionalism, but in a religion that they form for themselves. A religion that they form for themselves, independent of Catholicism. We're going to be talking about that today. I'm also going to be, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, I'm going to talk to you about, I wouldn't say it's a new direction for Firebranded. It is not a new direction. Maybe a development shift in how I do things a little bit. I'm going to do that at the bottom of the show because the only ones who are going to be interested in that are the people who actually like what I'm doing. The people who are already, looking for the next episode, looking for the next live. Those are the people who are going to be most interested in that. It's only going to take 5 minutes to get into it, but I'm going to do that at the end of the show, okay? Some updates on how I'm going to be doing things. It's not a radical shift, but it's a course shift enough that I wanted to share some details about it with you, okay? This Monsignor Rosetti thing is a little bit shocking to me. If you don't know anything about that, you've been living under Iraq or you've been living in Iraq, and you should go to theforge.fm or firebranded.fm for a podcast, or I guess you'll find it also here on YouTube, if you're seeing this on YouTube. Also, I wrote an article about it at theforge.fm, Monsignor Rosetti being removed as chief exorcist of the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. The more I think about this, the more confusing, the more perplexing it is that he was removed as the chief exorcist. It's just so stupid to me because, first of all, it's a really weak reason to, I guess, demote the priest. It's not really a demotion, but in a way you can think of it that way. It's a stupid reason, and the reason was undermining the very precise theology, the teaching of the church on the nature of angels. I mean, that is such a stretch. First of all, let's pretend it's not a stretch. Let's pretend that that's the truth. That is such a dumb reason to demote Monsignor Rosetti. I mean, super, super dumb. Also, it's such a stretch of a reason. This signals to me that that's not the real reason. It also signals that maybe there wasn't a real reason and he just wasn't liked. And that's not saying that he was unlikable. Really, we don't know, right? We don't work with him. But very strange. It's interesting that there is no one that I've encountered. Obviously, I'm one person. I do get around a lot, but I'm just one person. But there is no one I've encountered who's been happy about this, supportive of it, or neutral. No one's even been neutral on it. Everyone is like shocked and confused, like, what the hell is that? Even people who generally don't care about that sort of thing are like, what the hell is that? Very strange. If you haven't already, go to theforge.fm. I wrote an article basically going through the details of what was being reported, and then I give my own analysis of what I think is really the score. I go through why his comments were totally in line with Catholic teaching and church thought on the nature of angels and demons. And there's also a podcast there. It's very recent, so you'll find it no matter where you're finding this podcast. YouTube, firebranded.fm, theforge.fm, Apple, Spotify, wherever you're finding it, you're going to find that episode. It's very, very easy to find the episode that I did going a little bit deeper in my reaction to that. So, and finally, the other thing that I find amusing is, and very interesting, I'm seeing a lot of comments everywhere that I'm present on social media, various networks, and so on. Everyone is saying the same thing. What about Father James Martin? What about Father James Martin? Because he's constantly undermining church teaching, which I agree. I agree. What about James Martin? Here's my response to that, and I've been telling people I'm going to say a few words about that at the next podcast, so here I am. Or what about other exorcists? Here's the thing. What's distinctive about Monsignor Stephen Rosetti is he's within the diocesan ecosystem. An exorcist like Father James Martin, I'm sorry, God forbid, an exorcist like Father Chad Ripperger, however you pronounce his name, he's in a religious order. Forget about the fact that he's in a conservative religious order, which is meaningful. He's in a religious order. He's technically outside of the diocesan ecosystem. The diocesan ecosystem usually is a little bit more, it's hard to characterize. I'll just say plainly a little bit more restrictive, a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more careful, a little bit less, I guess, lenient. You would think the religious orders are going to be more stringent, but the religious orders, anything of the church that is independent, like a religious order or a lay organization that's doing a radio network or a Catholic television station, something that's in a religious order or a lay order, they're usually more cutting edge, and because they're outside of the diocesan structure, they have the freedom to be cutting edge, they have the freedom to bring people in who are cutting edge, and they also have the freedom to be a little bit more bold and plain-spoken. Now, Father James Martin is also in a religious order, so he has a little bit more freedom to be bold and plain-spoken, as he, in my opinion, undermines Catholic teaching. I want to be clear. I followed Father James Martin on socials for a while. I even read a little bit of his book, but his book was just not my thing. I would not call Father James Martin a heretic. I really, truly wouldn't. This is not me being safe. This is me being truthful with you. But my personal opinion, and it's a very well-informed opinion, he does play fast and loose with church teaching. For a while, I thought, well, he's just doing that to get his foot in the door, to be more welcoming, to build engagement and a relationship and dialogue. But the longer I followed him, the less convinced I was of that. My opinion, it's my opinion, based on my observation, he intentionally undermines or tries to skirt Catholic teaching. The same freedom that we see in independent organizations, which give us folks like Father Chad Ripperger, or say a Pints with Aquinas. I know that's not a religious order, but Matt Fradd is independent, right? The same freedoms we see inherent in an independent, we'll call it system, free of a diocesan ecosystem, can give us very good orthodox content, or it can give us heterodox content. You understand? Even though James Martin is a Jesuit, that's independent. He himself is not independent, but what I'm saying is his brand comes from an independent ecosystem, and that makes all the difference. That is also why TJ Haynes of Fiat Media, Firebranded is a product of Fiat Media, that's my LLC. It's independent. There are things that I can say here that a diocesan priest generally probably wouldn't say. But I know some diocesan priests who do. There's one in particular who comes to mind. Very good priest. He's not rebellious or anything. Very good priest. But he frequently says things in homilies or in his broadcasts that I'm surprised he goes there. And despite that, he has a very good relationship with his bishop. So you do find it, but generally, independent folks like TJ Haynes of Fiat Media, host of the Firebranded podcast, father of the Forge.fm, independent folks usually do have a little more freedom. Okay, sometimes usually it's a good thing, sometimes it is not. Hashtag Father James Martin. Keep that in mind. Keep that in your back pocket, because I may go back to that later. Okay, let's get in on the topic here. We're talking about young people returning to religion, okay? This is preliminary research that I was doing for an article, and I thought, this was a thought that I was having even up to this morning. Okay, while I was at Mass, I can't get this stuff out of my head even when I'm at Mass. God help me, God help me. But I was thinking about this at Mass. Basically this, I understand why people go for traditionalism. I really do. And the more I think about it, I've always understood it, but the more I've been thinking about it lately, the more understanding I am about it. I would still caution against it, but we're not going to talk about that today. And I was thinking about this, about why people go to traditionalism and so on. And then as I was formatting this research for an article, I thought, this ties into my thoughts on traditionalism. Let me talk about that. That preamble is my way of telling you these notes are a little disorganized because they weren't meant for a podcast. I was in the middle of structuring my research and putting the researched bits in order, and then I was going to do an outline, and then I was going to write it. Okay, so that's what you're getting. You're getting the top of the funnel. Okay, I haven't even gotten the outline yet because in the middle of it, I thought this is really a podcast segment. Okay, let's get into it now. There are signs of increased religiosity among some segments of young adults, but it is complex, folks. Let's start there. It's complex. Recent research and polling in the United States suggests that young men 18 to 29 have shown considerable increase in the rate of religiosity, saying that religion is very important to them. Now, folks, that is up from, I think, 28%, something like that, at 42%. So it's at 42%, up from 28% in just the past couple of years. It's pretty remarkable. That's based on a Gallup research. So it's a significant reversal. You've been hearing a lot about Gen Z returning to church, and they are, but I would just caution you, and I wrote a really extensive article on this, analyzing the research data at theforge.fm. While the news is good, I wouldn't say numbers of youth in Catholic churches are exploding. What I will say is that the numbers are stabilized, and they're starting to tick up a little bit. Across religions,
for those who dress the part. Secure your seats for Disney and Pixar's Toy Story 5 on Fandango, only in theaters June 19th.
Our breaking news coverage of the SpaceX IPO does continue now. Welcome to the Halftime Report. I'm Scott Wapner. We're here at Post 9 at the New York Stock Exchange. We're opened for business in the biggest IPO ever, up about 16% right now. We'll track every single move of it. SpaceX investor, Altimeter Capital founder and CEO Brad Gerstner is with us here. Stephanie Link is as well, Malcolm Etheridge, and Rob Seach. It's great to have everybody here. It is a momentous day. The timing of this, getting it open before noon, momentous in and of itself. You got a big allocation. Yeah. What do you think you're buying into today? What do you feel like you are?
I mean, first, let's just take a moment. Scott, first, thanks for having me on. Take a moment to celebrate what an incredible day this is for America, what an incredible day it is for the hard work of the thousands of people at Starbase who've worked to put us back on the top in space. Remember when SpaceX got started, right? We didn't even have a shuttle to go to space to pick up our own astronauts. We were paying the Russians to go get our astronauts. Today we're back on the top in space. I think this is what makes the country great. It's a great moment to celebrate. With that said, yes, we were buyers in the IPO. We were lucky enough to be shareholders ahead of the IPO. I think there's an incredible moment for the company. The numbers that are out there are not layups by any stretch, but hopefully today we can unpack that a little bit, Scott, because I think they have a real path on both AI hyperscale compute, on X.AI, on launch, and the things they're doing in connectivity that are going to change the country.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned some very, very big numbers, and this is where the real work begins, right? To try and reach those lofty targets that some have set, including the company itself.
Right.
A TAM of $28.5 trillion. Morgan Stanley's looking for SpaceX's revenue to reach $3.4 trillion in 2040. Lofty targets, obviously, by Goldman Sachs as well. So now we see what they can do from here.
Right. Well, I mean, let's not go all the way out to 2040. I think it's 160 billion, which is a little more pedestrian in 2028. And remember, something extraordinary happened. The last time I was on the show, just a couple weeks ago, I said everything about the IPO changed. Why? Because they had moved into the category of being an AI hyperscaler. In literally 6 weeks, they went from not in the game to $27 billion of AI hyperscaler revenue with big deals from Anthropic and Google. What is the one thing we can all underwrite? I think we can all agree Elon Musk and the team at SpaceX are as capable as anybody on the planet. Jensen has said they're number one at standing up terrestrial data centers, at standing up AI data centers. On my podcast, Jensen said they did in 100 days what it took others 2 to 3 years to do. So if the bet, in going from 20 billion or 18 billion last year to 160 billion, a huge portion of that is standing up AI data centers and leasing them right to the Anthropics of the world, the Googles of the world. I think they're going to run away and consolidate that business. My estimate is in a few years, they're going to be the largest AI hyperscaler in the United States.
I mean, it's probably why, as you heard Sequoia's Sean McGuire in the interview with our friends in the prior hour suggest that massive TAM that I mentioned could be, in his words, an underestimate. This company has the most important mission of any company in history, he said. Thinking about 10 years from now, I think of it more like NVIDIA 3 years ago. High confidence in the explosive revenue growth that they can deliver. And he made the point, I think, which was really interesting to listen to, and they can ramp really quickly. To your point, they've already proven their ability to ramp certain parts of the business really quickly. So doubt those large numbers at your own peril, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, today, this was not a get-rich-quick scheme today. $1.7 trillion is not a inadequate valuation. You see the stock up 20% today. So when I was getting calls from my mom and my siblings, should I buy the SpaceX stock on retail? I said, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme, but if you want to own it for a year or 2 years, I think you're going to do really well. Competitive returns from this one. I mentioned the AI hyperscalers. What we haven't mentioned is the pending acquisition of Cursor. Look, we were looking at investing in Cursor. I think it was probably the next best lab in the country beyond the frontier labs. We thought this company could get to 10 billion in revenue on its own this year. Right now, coupled with SpaceX, we think they can really have a shot at building, with that huge compute infrastructure, really building another frontier lab. Remember, intelligence is the log of compute. They have the largest coherent clusters in the country, and so we think they're going to be in the game at building X.AI into a real frontier lab.
Steph, you're one of the few in our orbit, pardon the pun, who wanted in on this IPO, who said you're going to be a buyer.
For those who dress the part. Secure your seats for Disney and Pixar's Toy Story 5 on Fandango, only in theaters June 19th.
Buyer. Are you?
I thought this was going to be up 40-50%, up 20. It's an absolute screaming buy. But I also said you buy a small position, it's going to be volatile, and you just set it and you forget it. Because he has a great track record, Elon Musk. Tesla was up 25,000% since their 2010 IPO. And that is a big, big number. So who knows what this company is going to do, but a total addressable market, even if it's half of the 28.5 trillion that is estimated, it's still a huge runway for this company. And founder-led companies usually increase shareholder returns by double. So you want to own a founder-led company. They have the sense of urgency, and he does. We know that for facts. The space business, they have a 90 share. Starlink, they have 10 million customers. Brad just talked about the AI opportunity. There's a lot of ways this company can win. They can just win in one of these things, and I think the stock is much higher.
You own this stock in pretty good size in private market.
And in the IPO as well. We've been participants across our client base. I think this is the most strategically unique asset ever to come to market. And they're going to have enormous pricing power. The one risk is their biggest client's the U.S. government. So when you have that type of pricing power, monopolistic pricing power, where your costs are coming in tremendously and your profits are going up enormously, the revenue opportunity and everything that Brad outlined. And by the way, if you can't listen to that and get excited about this business, there's actually something wrong with you. This IPO is the most engineered IPO in history, too. Do you think any of the underwriters are not going to support this? The size of the offering, the retail participation. So there's a lot to be excited about. The index inclusion, right?
NASDAQ 100 in about 15 days.
So much that is supportive of here. Now, there is a huge underwriter's lockup coming off at some point in the future. There may be an opportunity at some point to be a better buyer. However, I think there's so much enthusiasm around this.
30-year Treasury yield just held above 5%. And if you understand what that number actually means, every equity discount model on Wall Street that was built in the last decade just completely broke. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why the 30-year Treasury holding above 5% is not a bond market event. It's a systemic repricing of every asset class that you own right now. I'm going to show you the structural reason that this is not going to go away and what it means for your portfolio right as we speak. Before we get started, if you like this type of content, please click like and consider subscribing. It's really important to be in the know about this stuff, and this is how you do it. Now, here is what the financial press is telling you. Yields are high because inflation is high. The Iran war pushed oil up, oil pushed consumer prices up. April CPI came in at 3.8% year over year, a 3-year high that kept the Fed frozen, and frozen rates pushed long-term yields higher. That's the story. It's clean, it's logical, and is almost completely beside the point. Because if that were the full story, then when the Iran conflict cools, when oil comes down, when inflation moderates, the 30-year yield would fall back to below 5%. Everything would normalize, but that is not what is happening.
Play live baccarat with real live dealers at Bet88.
Place your bets.
Okay, so really quickly, check it. Sounds good. Sending you, sorry, I probably should Okay, so why did you want to come out here and see these letters? I think it's a historic moment. It's the first time you see our policy of the country's open, and I think it's good. Now, you are from here? Yes. Okay. I do. I was born and raised in England, so I know it's still the same. Awesome. So, as far as like, I mean, it's raining, a lot of people coming out here. What does it mean to go? I think it's amazing. It's like a rush to give people that are here. And finally, your first last name for me? Lauren. How do you spell it? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Be safe. Stay dry. It's a hot mess out here.
In addition to being the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman also has many other business ventures. Perhaps his most controversial venture is a weird cryptocurrency called WorldCoin. The corporate structure of WorldCoin is a little bit complicated. There's a for-profit company called Tools for Humanity, which was co-founded by Sam Altman. Tools for Humanity created a cryptocurrency called WorldCoin, which was launched in 2023. There's also an entity called the World Foundation, which is technically a non-profit, but it seems to be controlled by the same people who own the for-profit company Tools for Humanity. The World Foundation appears to be involved with the WorldCoin cryptocurrency. Tools for Humanity creates large orb-shaped devices which contain high-resolution cameras. They've made thousands of these orbs and deployed them around the world. People who agree to have their eyes scanned by the orb receive a few WorldCoin tokens as compensation. To receive this compensation, you have to download the WorldCoin mobile app. The app contains a crypto wallet where your WorldCoins are deposited. Because everybody's irises are unique, by scanning your eyes, you can verify that you are a real human who has not been scanned before. Following the scan, you receive a unique World ID, which is tied to your WorldCoin app. The idea is that businesses will eventually pay for the privilege of verifying their customers with World ID. WorldCoin was launched more than 2 years ago. Thus far, it's been a total flop. Real-world adoption is near zero, and the coin has lost 80% of its value since the initial coin offering. In this video, we'll analyze some recent developments related to WorldCoin, and why the project has been such a failure.
So if you've been following this YouTube channel, you know that I'm already obsessed with finding the smart tools that help creators, entrepreneurs, and developers build faster. Usually I talk about AI tools or coding apps, but today I found something that...
You're an independent financial advisory firm. Would you be advising institutional investors, retail investors to own this one?
Well, what we do is we try to give people a framing to understand their decision. And by that count, the simple math obviously doesn't add up. This is a very expensive stock relative to any rational measure of value. But we're talking about Elon Musk, who has a tremendous track record of not just success, but convincing people that success is durable. So it's not a calculus based on valuation, it's a calculus based on faith. And plenty of people have a ton of faith and have made billions of dollars with Elon Musk in the past, and they're willing to give him a pass on this one because they think it can happen again.
Well, I want to talk connectivity a little bit with you, and the focus on really telecom Starlink when it comes to this IPO. In 2025, it was 61% of the revenue. As I was mentioning earlier, I think for a lot of people who, haven't been to a rocket launch or actually, are big users of the AI tech that SpaceX has, maybe Starlink is the most tangible part of this business that they've interacted with. In your view, that's a pretty good business, right?
It is a phenomenal business. It is a truly...
Generative AI does not have a business model. Like, forget viable, forget sustainable. They don't have one. They have to pay their customers to use AI. If they'd have raised prices, I'd have been like, okay, this makes sense, people are going to be angry, but lowering them means they must be being told by companies, we're not planning to spend anything. It's less than 3 months and their customers are already taking hostages. And I think it's hilarious. I think it is genuinely, it is approaching the vindication hour for me.
Today on the Tech Report, I'm joined by the writer of Where's Your Edat and the host of the Better Offline podcast, Ed Zitron. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Welcome back, Isaac.
Thank you very much. Before we get into some reports that OpenAI and Anthropic are considering cutting their prices, we kind of have to talk a little bit about SpaceX's record-breaking IPO today. As of recording, they've kind of just launched. There's, I think, at just over $150, or it's going up slightly. And considering the number of Hail Marys that SpaceX stock prices requires to come true, like data centers in space, for example, how much of this market reaction do you think is from the fear of missing out, the sort of the hype around it?
I think that's all that's driving SpaceX, because SpaceX used to be a rocket company with an internet company attached, like a satellite internet company. The only really profitable part of the company
Hey everyone, it's Richard, watching the Plate and Bagel. Today is the day that we see the first company cross the finish line in the AI race to go public, with Elon Musk's SpaceX, the company whose prospectus reads like a science fiction book, complete with pictures for easy reading, officially start trading its shares publicly under the ticker SPCX, breaking records and making Elon Musk the world's first trillionaire. And depending on who you ask, it either signals the start of the retail investor AI golden age or the beginning of the end of the AI bubble. You see, this was just the first of 3 massive AI